Peace, Chem family. It's me, Bayanasset Kind Sekhmet, the naturopathic nurse for Kemetic Wellness Sacred Healing Center, and I'm back with another video. So in today's video, I want you to stay tuned because I have a very special announcement that I'm going to tell you all about at the end of the video, so stay tuned, okay? Today we're going to be talking about a very important part of nutrition that most of us have totally never even thought about and are missing. And this is the piece that can completely transform the way that you're eating and get you the results that you really need in terms of your health, your wellness, and also your fitness, okay? And that is cultural nutrition. I talked about cultural nutrition in my last video, but we're going to expand on it today. So for every species that exists on the face of the earth, whether these are snakes or polar bears or koala bears or insects, every single species that exists has a particular diet that it needs in order for its survival. I hope that's clear. Every single animal, every single thing that exists, it has its own nutrition, its own makeup. There are certain minerals and certain foods that it needs in order to be healthy, right? Human beings are no different. However, we do not have all of the same genetic makeup as human beings. Although we do all come from the same place, you know, human life began somewhere about 200,000 years ago in Africa. So we all do have a common ancestor. Our genetics have changed over time based on our migration to different parts of the world, right? And every species that exists, their nutrition is based on the environment that they live in. They go hand in hand, right? So for example, polar bears that live in an Arctic climate, their makeup allows them to live in that particular climate. Their fur allows them to live in that particular climate, and the foods that they eat are in alignment with the Arctic climate, the fish that they have to eat. You understand? So that is the same thing for human beings. Although we all originated in Africa, we migrated to different parts of the world, and the areas of the world that we have adapted to, that is going to determine the type of diet that we would eat naturally. It's essential to take into account your genetic background in order to determine the types of food that you should be eating. Okay? It takes over 2,000 years for the stomach culture, for the gut of any group to change. 2,000 years. So what that means is that the diet that is best for you is very likely going to be the diet that is in alignment with where your ancestors came from. I talked about this in my last video. There is a study that was done where they took a group of Africans in America, African Americans, and a group of South Africans. And what they did was they switched their diets, right? So although Africans in America, we've been living here for maybe 400 or 500 years. That's not 2,000 years, right? So that means that our gut culture is going to be in alignment with those of African descent, right? Because that's where we came from. However, we're not eating, most of us are not eating an African diet. We're eating a SAD diet, a standard American diet, which is a Western diet, okay? And because of that, a lot of us are developing problems that we did not have when we were living in our natural environment. Cancer, diabetes, heart disease, overweight and obesity, all of these different problems that we did not have before because we're eating a diet that's not in alignment with where we originally came from. It's not in alignment with our genetics and our ancestry, okay? So what happened when they switched the diets, right? The Africans in America, once they began eating the South African diet, they started to begin to show changes that demonstrated health, losing weight, coming off of certain medications, things like that. And then the South Africans, they did studies of their gut that showed changes that are in alignment with cancer from eating a standard American diet. And this was over a period of just a few weeks. Okay, so that is just to show you how important eating from your genetic background, your cultural background is. Now, there are several different things that affect the cultural nutrition of a group in any part of the world. That would be the geography, the topography, and the climate, okay? So for example, in West Africa and Central Africa, you have different types of terrain. You have rainforests, you have jungle, you have mountainous regions, you have desertous regions. The climate there is typically very warm, okay? Temperatures can go low as 65 degrees all the way up above the hundreds, 104 degrees. Okay, the certain countries that are there in these areas now, this will be like Ghana, Nigeria, Ivory Coast, and several other countries in this area. Now, the foods that are grown in these areas are in alignment with the climate and the topography. So some of the most common foods that are grown there, you have sorghum, you have millet, you have peanut. Palm oil is the most prominent cooking oil that is coming out of West Africa. Okay, you have plantain, you have all different types of tropical fruits, bananas, mangoes, pineapples. This is based on the climate that is there. And the people who are from this area eating this diet that is in their natural environment are in the best of health. They're eating their proper cultural nutrition. Many of us across the African diaspora have roots in Western and Central Africa. However, we are not all eating a West African diet. Many of us are eating a Western diet, a European diet that's not in alignment with these things. Now, what is the climate and the topography of Europe, of Westerners? Europe is located in the westernmost part of Asia, okay? It is really only separated from Asia by the Caucasus Mountains and the Ural Straits. So the climate of Europe is totally different than the climate of, for example, West Africa, okay? It is very cold, snowy, subarctic temperatures. That affects the vegetation that is grown in those parts of the world. They don't have the same types of foods that are grown in African countries, okay, because the terrain is different, the climate is different. So what did they eat? They ate a lot of grains, okay, a lot of breads, a lot of rice, a lot of potatoes, and starchy vegetables, whatever they could grow. They did have some vegetables, tomatoes, onions, leeks, things like that, and that is common in their foods. They also created a lot of processed foods because they don't have the vegetation that we have. Their diet is also very high in meat. So a lot of fish and a lot of chicken, beef, different cuts of steak. This is because this is what they could get to eat. So their diet tends to be high in these types of foods and a lot of animal products, a lot of animal fats, and very high in starch and low in fiber. This is the total opposite of the way that those of African descent eat. So you have to take those things into account when you are deciding what types of foods are best for your health. Growing up in the Bronx, when I would go to school in the morning, it was common for us to go and get a bacon, egg, and cheese sandwich to eat for breakfast before going to school. What exactly are you eating if you're eating a bacon, egg, and cheese sandwich in the morning? Pig, a chicken fetus, and some mucus on devitalized starch. That's what you're eating if you're looking at it and breaking it down. That's what I was eating every single day. And whose diet is that? Those are foods that are very commonly eaten in European cultures based on what they have available to them in their climate. That is not our diet. That's not our diet, and a lot of us are so addicted to it. We think it is so good, we love it, and it's killing us. And this is why a lot of us, when we are in our natural environments, like for example, I know a lot of people who come from different parts of the Caribbean. Like my family is from the Caribbean. I'm from Jamaica, and they are fine when they're in Jamaica. You know, they don't have too many health problems over there. They're eating, you know, the ackee and saltfish, they're eating the plantains, they're eating the bananas, the mangoes, all of the things that are grown there in that tropical environment, which is very similar to those of our ancestors in Africa. Okay, so the diet is still very, very similar. However, when they come over here, all of a sudden they have all types of diabetes, high blood pressure, and all of these other things. And even those in Jamaica who are eating more Western foods are having the same exact issue. They're having the same problems, okay? Because they're not taking into account that these foods are not meant for you. They're not meant for you. There is an author by the name of Dr. Weston Price. Okay, now Dr. Weston Price, what he did was he went around to different regions of the world and studied the people there over a few generations to see how the introduction of Western foods began to change the health of the people in these lands. He went through several different African countries. He went through different islands in the South Pacific. He went through different parts of Asia. He went through different parts of the world and looked at the older generations of people. He looked at the health problems that they did not have. their status of health, how they looked, how their skin looked, and also the number one thing that he really focused on was their facial formation, their jaw structure, and their teeth. Because the teeth are an example of health. Our teeth are made up of minerals, they're bones, right? And he noticed those who were from the older generations before Western foods were brought in, they had beautifully formed facial structures. They had beautiful teeth. And as the Western foods began to make their way into the culture, the younger generation started to have less beautiful features. Meaning they had differences in the facial structure, and they had bad teeth. They had crowding of the teeth and malformations of the jaw and of their facial structures. This started to happen across all of these different indigenous cultures as Western foods were brought in. Another thing to pay attention to is that once Europeans brought their foods into these different parts of the world and the people began to get sick, the next thing that they brought in was the hospitals. The next thing that they brought in was the hospitals. So with their food, they had to bring in the hospitals because the people were getting so sick. And so many of us are going to the hospitals and nothing is really changing. You're just ending up on more and more medication because you haven't really addressed the root of what's causing your problem, which is the food, right? And even doctors today, they take what is called a Hippocratic oath. And that is based on Hippocrates, who they call the father of medicine, which he really is not. He studied under Imhotep from ancient Kemet, okay, who really taught him the basics of food. But Hippocrates taught that let thy food be thy medicine. Your food is your medicine. Now, this is the oath that they take on as medical practitioners, but they don't follow it or teach their clients or patients that this is what they need to do. Instead, they give you every chemical prescription that they can think of without actually really getting to the root of what is causing the symptoms or the dis-ease, which is the food. It's the food. So that being said, I told you all that I was going to have a surprise for you, or an announcement, if you stay to the end of the video. So let's get into that. I'm not going to give you all this information without letting you know how you can begin to implement this, right? Now, a lot of you all have been asking me for meal plans and to get more information on how you can eat in the way that I have been teaching in these videos. So I have something that I have been working on for a very, very long time, and it is finally here. And that is my book. That's my book, High Vibration Nutrition. It is finally out and available on Amazon.com. And on this particular topic, cultural nutrition, I have, I don't even know, a good amount of pages on that topic. Let me see. It's on page 50 in the book. It's about 20 pages on that topic alone. And what I did was I researched different areas of the world. So let me kind of go through it really quick. So this is it. Starts off here. And I researched different areas of the world, different parts of Africa, Central and West Africa, East Africa, Southern Africa, and then also Afro-Caribbean, African-American, Afro-South American diets. And I went through the geography, the terrain, the climate, gave you some information on that, and gave you some information on the foods that come from each of these places, okay? Also went through other parts of the world so that you can see the diets for everybody, every group of human being on the face of this earth. You can see the geography, and for example, Asia, Central Asia I went through, East Asia, South Asia, Southeast Asia, West Asia, North Asia. Then I went through Europe, Northern Europe, Central and Eastern Europe, Western Europe, Southern Europe, the South Pacific, which we know as Oceania, okay? With the Hawaiians and the Pacific Islanders. I went through their climate and the foods that are grown in those regions, and gave you some information on all of the different foods that are grown in those regions, so you can get an understanding of, based on wherever you come from in the world, this is how you should be eating. This is how you should be eating for your health, okay? So that's that. You can get this on Amazon. Go ahead and search it, High Vibration Nutrition by me, by Naset Kai and Segment. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and share it with someone who you think it would be helpful to. We are almost at 1,000 subscribers, and I want to get there so that I have the opportunity to make more and more videos that are going to be helpful to you all. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section, and you can always visit me at Kemeticwellness.com if you want to connect with me further. I hope this video was helpful to you all, and I'll see you in the next video.